Tempeh is one of my favorite vegan proteins. So I'm going to show you how you can batch prep some homemade tempeh with a few simple ingredients that is going to save you time and money. Hi there, Dina here, and today I wanted to share with you a super simple method for making your own homemade tempeh. Don't be intimidated, it's not complicated, and it does not require a lot of specialty ingredients. So let me show you what I'm starting with. This is everything you need right here. I have some dried soybeans, and you just want to go through the dried beans, and like with any other bean, you want to go through and make sure you remove any discolored or ones that look, funky or off or dried up. You might occasionally find a little rock or a pebble in there. That's what happens with dried beans. It's okay, just take those out and discard those. And these I buy in bulk, super inexpensive. If you looked at the cost of tempeh in the grocery store lately, it's creeped up there along with everything else. So this is not only a time-saving recipe, making a big batch and have in the freezer for easy meals, but it will also save you a lot of money, and you might be surprised that it tastes even better than the tempeh in the grocery store. So all we're starting with is just our dried beans, and I have covered those with water. This is 3 cups of dried soybeans. I'm making a big double batch and I will write all of the measurements in the description box for you. So I just have soaked these overnight in some water, and what I'm going to do is just kind of rub them in my hands because we want to get most of the skin off of the beans. And you'll see that they have pretty much tripled in size, and they look more like a little bean shape than a little round ball after you soak them. So these have soaked. These have actually soaked longer than overnight. You can soak them up to 24 hours. If you're going to soak them longer than overnight, you want to maybe change the water about halfway through, just to prevent them from, starting to ferment in the water. We don't want that. So you just want to kind of rub them between your hands and squish them around, and you're looking for them to actually, most of them to break in half, which will happen, and the skins will come off. So you can see I have a bunch of skins already stuck to my hand. And you don't have to worry about getting 100% of the skins off of the soybeans. You don't have to go through and individually pick every skin off of every soybean. That wouldn't make it an easy recipe, would it? So what we're looking for is to get the majority of the skins off. And once we squish them around and rub them between our hands like this, the skins will pretty much come off of those. If you have ever taken the skins off of almonds for almond milk or chickpeas that you have cooked from dry, don't let that process stop you from doing this. Taking the skins off the soybeans is way easier than the almonds or the chickpeas. I promise. They come off a lot easier. So this is what we're looking for, and you'll see that this will go pretty quickly, about 5 minutes. And once you're done doing this, you'll want to do this process probably 3 or 4 times just to make sure you get most of the soybeans broken up and most of the skins off. So what will happen in this large bowl is the skins will kind of float to the surface, and you can just pour those off. Wow, I'm making a mess. That's okay. All right, most of the skins have been discarded, so you just want to add your beans to a large pot. Now I have a lot of beans here, so I'm using a very large pot. If you do a half recipe, which still makes quite a bit of tempeh, you may not need this large of a pot, but you just want to make sure that when you're cooking beans that you have enough water. Number one mistake I see beginner cook from dry bean makers make is not putting enough water. They take a long time to cook. They'll absorb a lot of water even when they've soaked for 24 hours. So you want to make sure that you cover the top of your beans with 3 to 4 inches of water. So into this, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt, about a tablespoon of salt, and I just have pink sea salt here. And I'm going to cover this until the top of the beans are covered by 3 to 4 inches of water. I'm going to bring it to a boil, then turn it down to simmer, and it's going to cook for about 45 minutes. It may take a little longer for your beans, depends on how long you soak them, how big the beans are, but what we're looking for is just tender, not mushy. So let me pop these on the stove. Okay, our beans are cooked and I have just drained them and rinsed them, and they are just just tender to where you can break them with your fingers, but still have a little bit of a chew to them. Like I said, we don't want them to be mushy. So the next thing we're going to do is just add them to some type of tray. I just have a cookie sheet that I have lined with an absorbent towel, and I'm just going to spread these out and let them drain the rest of the way and cool completely. And then we'll add the rest of our ingredients together, and it will be time to just set it aside and let it do its ferment thing. Okay, now that my soybeans have cooled, it's time to get the rest of this together. And I'm just going to add all of these to my bowl. All right, next going in, the only 2 other ingredients are some vinegar and some tempeh starter. Now for the vinegar, you can use any kind of vinegar. I'm just using regular white vinegar. You could use apple cider vinegar or brown rice vinegar. So 3 tablespoons of that. And the vinegar is just to help prevent any bad bacteria from growing in the tempeh. I will say that in this process, if your tempeh turns green with mold or pink with mold, then the vinegar did not do its job. You're going to need to start over. But if you have any black color on it, that's fine. That's just part of the tempeh fermenting process. So just mix this around. Get your vinegar coated on all your little beans there. All right, and in this bowl, I just have some tempeh starter, and it's just a powder. Doesn't smell weird. It smells kind of like mushroomy, but it's going to give the tempeh that really extra kind of nutty-like flavor and help it get fermenting. So once you buy a package of this, and I will link the one I bought in the description box, but once you buy a package of this and you start making your own tempeh, it's kind of like making your own sourdough, because you can make tempeh starter from homemade tempeh. So you only technically really need to buy 1 package of this, and it's not expensive. So, and they send you like a really big package. This was the package that I ordered, and I've already used quite a bit out of it, but yeah, it's a lot and it goes a long way. It'll last a long time. But technically, you only have to buy it once, which is good. I like things like that. So, just going to get the starter mixed in there really evenly. Now with the vinegar, you don't have to be too super worried about mixing it really, really well. But once you get the starter in there, you want to try to mix it pretty well. So make sure every little bean comes in contact with some of that starter. So just fold it around several times. So the next step is just to add it to some kind of container to let it ferment. Now I'm using Ziploc bags that I'm going to poke holes in. You could use reusable silicone bags. These are gallon size bags, but you can use any size bag. Also traditionally used are banana leaves. So if you can find some banana leaves, if you live where those are available, they also work great. You just wrap the tempeh in them and no need to poke holes or anything. It just naturally ferments. But I don't have those available, and my reusable bags are already being used. So I have some Ziploc bags. And don't worry, I will definitely reuse these. My husband gets kind of tired of all the Ziploc bags in the dish drainer. But you know, hey, reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's too much plastic. Too much plastic bags in the world. Whatever you do buy to use, make sure you use them over and over until the end of their life. So I just want to evenly distribute this in my bags. That looks like about half. No need to weigh or measure. You can just kind of eyeball it here. Okay, that looks good to me, about half and half. And I'm just going to, I'll show you this one. I'll set that one to the side. Just want to get most of the air out of that so that we can lay it out into a flat block. So once we have this like laid out into a flat block, we just want to press it down and press it out evenly. Make sure it's pressed down nice and good and form our little tempeh square. And for airflow, which is important to get this fermenting, I just have a little toothpick. And I'm just going to go in and poke some holes about every inch or so. And you'll want to do this on both sides. Okay, we've got a bag full of holes here. Press this out nice and flat and firm so that there's no single little beans laying by themselves and there's no large lumps or bumps, so everything can ferment evenly. And I'm just going to transfer this to a cooling rack, and this is going to go into my pantry, which is the warmest room in my house. Okay, it's the pantry laundry room together. So I'll put this out there because that's where it's nice and warm. And after about 12 hours, we're going to check the process and see if we have any white stuff growing. White stuff is what we're looking for. Okay, our tempeh is finally ready. Now it's been kind of a cool week here this past week in the South, so it took a little bit longer than I wanted it to take. So it's been a couple of days, but we finally have what we're looking for. We have a solid block of tempeh, and it should, you'll know it's ready when it's formed into a solid mass. You'll be able to tell. And it is completely white in color. Okay, so one corner fell apart a little bit. That's okay. I'm not super worried about that. This maybe could have gone another 6 to 12 hours or so, but that's okay. I'm ready to eat it tonight. I'm hungry and I was looking forward to the meal I'm going to make. It's going to be so good, a little bit different for a tempeh meal. But anyway, what you'll want to do after you ferment it and get it out of the wrapper, whatever kind of wrapper you decide to use, you just want to cut it into portions so that you can store it in the refrigerator or in the freezer. I'm just going to cut mine like in equal parts. Rock agrees that he's hungry too. It's okay, Rock. We're going to go for a walk in a minute. Okay, and I like to just cut long rectangles, kind of like you would buy in the package. Okay, and from there I'm going to cut triangles because that's how I like to cook it and eat it when I'm making like a sandwich. But you can also just leave it in the long strips, or you could cut it for like making tempeh bacon, which is also really good. Tempeh tacos too. So I'm just going to set aside a couple pieces for tonight's meal, and the rest I'm going to freeze. Okay. Um, you can store it up to a week to 2 weeks in the refrigerator, but since it's not commercially processed, it's still going to continue to ferment in the refrigerator. So in order to stop that, you can put it in the freezer. Now, once you start to see the little black spots on it, don't worry about that. It's still good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just releasing more of that fermentation. And at that time, you may want to go ahead and cook it or freeze it, or you can save it for making your own tempeh starter for your next batch of tempeh. So let me show you what I am going to make tonight for dinner. It's not tempeh tacos, not tempeh bacon, which are so popular and so delicious, but tonight we're going to do something a little bit different, and I am going to make these into tempeh steaks with some mushroom and onion gravy over some warm, creamy polenta. It's one of my favorite meals. It's so good. So let's get to that. Here is our beautiful tempeh. Now, it's not going to smell fermented as in like pickly fermented. It will just have a slight nutty mushroom smell, and it doesn't smell or taste as strong and bitter as the tempeh that you buy in the grocery store. It has a much milder flavor, milder, sweeter, and you won't need to boil it first to get the bitterness out. It's not going to be bitter like that. So I'm going to throw it right in my marinade, which I just have some leftover marinade from a recipe I made earlier today, which was some rice paper bacon. It's in a short if you want to check it out. It's so good. I had a BLT for lunch today and it was perfect. So anyway, I'm hungry again. What's in my marinade is just soy sauce, maple syrup, Dijon mustard, and some mushroom powder and black pepper. I think I got everything. I think that's all that went into it. Oh, and just a couple drops of liquid smoke. So to my marinade for tonight's dinner, I'm just adding a little more pepper, some salt, some garlic powder, and onion powder. Oh, soy sauce. That's what's in there. And I did add some water to it. Otherwise, I wouldn't add the salt. Might get a little salty if it's just straight soy sauce and maple syrup. Okay, and just give that a mix, and it is already smelling good. And I'm just going to let my tempeh hang out in here while I chop up my mushroom and onion. Okay, and I just have a few cremini mushrooms here, which I have cleaned off, along with a yellow onion, which I'm going to slice up. I'm only going to use about a third of this. It's only me having this meal tonight. My husband is having something else. He is not interested in tempeh at all. Uh, Kind of the same way with tofu. I mean, he'll eat it if I make it, and he'll be nice about it, but it's not his favorite. So he said he would cook his own meal, and I am going to let him do that. So I'm just going to slice these up and get them going in a nice hot pan. Okay, I have my iron skillet heating up here, and the first thing I want to do is just get my mushrooms going in first. I have it all the way up to high, get it nice and hot, and I want the mushrooms to go in first and kind of roast and dehydrate in the dry pan so that it concentrates that mushroom flavor down. No salt or any oil or anything, just a dry roast in the pan, and it makes a big difference on how concentrated and meaty the mushrooms get. Okay, and these have cooked down pretty good. I'm just going to add in my onion, and these are going to just saute until they're a little bit caramelized. Oh, it already smells so good. You may or may not need, I'm going to turn the heat down just to about medium high. You may or may not need to add some water to help them along. And if you are not oil free, this would be a good place to add a little bit of olive oil or a little bit of vegan butter. I'm not going to add either of those to this right now. We're going to see how it goes. I think I can just water saute these. You know, oil is not always necessary. Sometimes it is necessary to use a little bit, but not every time, not all the time. So I'm just going to get these going. They're looking good and smelling good already. I'm going to add just a pinch of salt. And the salt is absolutely optional also. If you're oil-free, salt-free, all of that good stuff. I still like a little bit of salt. So while that's going, I'm just going to turn on my other burner here so that I can get some water heating up for the quick cooking polenta. I did end up adding a little bit of water just now to help these along so they won't stick, and they are looking really good. Okay, and my water is about up to a boil. It's just simmering, and I have here just some quick cooking polenta. I have about 1 part polenta to 3 parts water. You could also use vegetable stock, but since I'm putting a nice flavorful gravy on top of this one, I'm just using water and a pinch of salt. And you just want to get the polenta in there cooking and break it up so there are no big clumps in there because we want it nice and creamy. If you have never tried polenta, I highly recommend it. It is so good. It's also good the next day as leftovers. You can slice it up into little patties and put them in the air fryer, and you can have them either sweet or savory. You could have them with a little bit of maple syrup, or you could have them with your tofu scramble on top. It's really good. Highly recommend polenta, and it's so quick and easy to make. If you get the quick cooking kind, they come together in just a couple minutes. In fact, you can even just pop them in the microwave in a microwavable coffee cup, which I have done, and have a super quick and satisfying meal. Okay, the polenta has come to a boil and it has thickened up. It only takes, like I said, about 2 to 3 minutes for that to happen with the quick cooking polenta. What you're looking for is a nice thick consistency, maybe like a runny mashed potato or grits, if you're familiar with grits, which polenta is kind of similar to grits. They're just a little bit sweeter and creamier. So if you like grits, you'll probably like polenta. I like both, but in this case, I like the polenta. So I'm just going in with a couple tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which is optional, but traditionally polenta is made with Parmesan cheese and loads of butter. And we're not doing that. We're not doing any of that. We're keeping it super healthy. So I'm just going to stir in my nutritional yeast, and the polenta is ready. So at this point, I'm just going to pop a lid on it and set it to the side, and it will stay nice and hot and creamy for a long time. So it will be fine while we finish everything else up. Just going to set it to the side. And if it gets a little bit too thick, you can always just whisk in a little bit of soy milk, or if you are not oil free and not having to watch your fats, this is a great place to use just a little bit of vegan butter. Okay, so let's make some gravy. I have my mushroom and onion here. Pan is still nice and hot. And here I just have a little bit of black pepper and some mushroom powder that are just going straight in the pan. And usually in this recipe, I put thyme. And I have a big, huge bush of thyme out there in the garden, but it is rainy and soggy, and I didn't want to go get it. So when I write the recipe down in the description box, I'll write to add some thyme. So this is just some veggie stock powder that is a not beef powder. So vegan beef broth. I'm going in with that. And this is a really good one. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description box. So this you just want to whisk, and the mushroom powder is going to kind of take the place of flour or cornstarch to help this gravy thicken up. And it is such a good, nice, thick, savory gravy. I'm really regretting not going to get the thyme though, but now it's dark and raining, so it's not happening today. Okay, and my gravy is looking good here. I have boiled it down so it has concentrated and thickened up. I'm just going to transfer it to a bowl while we cook our tempeh. And I'm going to be very careful not to splash myself or spill anything. So I don't burn myself. Okay, and just going to set this aside over here with our polenta. It will only take a couple of minutes for our tempeh to cook, so our gravy should stay nice and hot. And I just have my marinated tempeh going right in the hot pan with that. And I just want to brown it up a little bit on both sides. And I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper and this mushroom powder, which is so delicious. This one is from Target and it's really good. I highly recommend. Trader Joe's also has one, and there are probably several at other grocery markets now. It's become more and more common just because it is so delicious. This one has all kinds of spice in it. It has the mushroom powders, a few different kinds of mushroom powder, and it also has like garlic powder, salt, onion powder, and a few other spices in it. So good. Oh, the smell's amazing. Okay, once the tempeh is brown on both sides, it's ready to go. I'm just going to transfer it to a plate. And I'm going to clean up real quick. I just want to make sure that I get my iron skillet deglazed and wiped out and seasoned for the next time I use it. If you do that right now before you plate your food, you'll always have your skillet ready to go. All right, let's plate this up. This is going to be so warm and satisfying. This is a really great fall meal. And I need a bigger scoop for my polenta, so I'm going to borrow the one I got out for the gravy. And you could certainly do mashed potatoes here. Like I said, mashed parsnips would be good. This gravy and tempeh is really good over a sweet potato mash also. All of those really good things. Okay, little bit of gravy on my polenta. All right, so on top with my tempeh. This is one of my favorite meals. I cannot wait to eat this. And top that with some of my gravy. Let's give this a taste. It's so hot still. mm. Mm-mm-mm. One of my favorites. So good. I hope you'll try it. Thanks so much for watching and sticking with me. Let me know if you try the recipe for the tempeh or for this, even with store-bought tempeh, still a delicious meal. I'll see you next time. Bye.